My name is Amara, and this is the story I never intended to tell. A story that began on a night so ordinary it should have faded into memory, yet somehow it became the moment that changed everything. It started with a dinner invitation. My best friend Sophia and her husband Ethan had invited me over for what was supposed to be a simple evening together. They were the kind of couple people admired. Perfect smiles, beautiful apartment, the kind of chemistry that made love seem effortless. But behind their perfection, I sensed something else. A quiet distance. A tension that neither of them addressed, yet it hung in the air like perfume that refused to fade. That evening, I arrived with a bottle of wine, rehearsing small talk in my head. Sophia greeted me warmly, her laughter filling the room, but Ethan's eyes lingered just a little too long when he looked at me. I told myself it meant nothing. Dinner was full of stories and laughter, but beneath it all, something pulsed quietly. When Sophia stepped away to take a phone call, Ethan asked how I'd been. His voice was low, almost careful. I said I was fine, but the way he looked at me made me feel like he saw straight through the lie. Later, when Sophia returned, she didn't notice that the air had shifted. We toasted to friendship, to love, to the illusion that everything was exactly as it should be. When I got home that night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the entire evening, trying to understand why Ethan's voice still echoed in my mind. There was nothing inappropriate in his words, yet somehow they lingered longer than they should have. I told myself to forget it, to protect my friendship with Sophia, and to guard my heart from curiosity. But hearts rarely listen to logic. Days passed, then weeks. And somehow, Ethan began to appear in my life in small ways. A text about a book we had discussed at dinner. A random call asking for my opinion on something Sophia mentioned. Each exchange was harmless on the surface, but there was something unspoken beneath every message. One evening, Sophia invited me again for dinner, but she had to cancel at the last minute. Ethan insisted I still come, not wanting to waste the food. I hesitated, but he sounded sincere, so I went. The apartment was dimly lit, the city lights spilling through the windows. He cooked, and we talked, about everything and nothing. The laughter came easily, maybe too easily. After dinner, the silence stretched between us like an invisible thread. I could feel his gaze on me, heavy and unreadable. Then he said quietly, "Do you ever wonder if timing changes everything?" I looked at him, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" He smiled sadly. "If we had met before Sophia, before everything else, do you think we would have noticed each other?" I didn't answer. The question itself felt dangerous. My thoughts tangled with guilt and desire, a mix I couldn't untangle. That night, when I returned home, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. My reflections stared back at me, asking questions I didn't want to answer. Was I crossing a line? Or was I simply human, longing for connection in the wrong place? The next day, Sophia called. She sounded happy, unaware of the storm brewing beneath my calm tone. I wanted to tell her everything, but how do you confess to feelings you don't understand? Weeks later, Sophia traveled for work, leaving Ethan alone. I promised to check in on him, just as any friend would. That's when everything changed. He called one rainy evening, asking if I could stop by. He sounded lonely. I went. The city outside was soaked in silver light, and inside the apartment, everything felt suspended. We talked for hours, the kind of talk that strips away pretense. He told me how distant things had become between him and Sophia, how he felt unseen. I listened, trying to be a friend, but every word he spoke drew me deeper into his world. At one point, the silence between us turned intimate, almost tender. He reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. There was no kiss, no betrayal in the physical sense, but the look in his eyes said everything that words couldn't. In that moment, we crossed a line we couldn't name. After that night, things shifted again. We didn't talk about what happened, but we didn't pretend it hadn't. There was something fragile, electric, and dangerous between us. Ethan began texting less. Sophia returned, cheerful and full of stories from her trip. She thanked me for being there for him, completely unaware of the quiet battle happening inside me. But fate wasn't done testing me. One evening, Ethan invited me to an art exhibit downtown. "It's just an exhibit," he said, "something to distract us both." The city lights shimmered like broken glass as I walked through the gallery with him. The air was filled with whispers and soft music. Then we stopped in front of one painting that silenced us both. It showed two silhouettes standing close but never touching, surrounded by rain. The painting was called Almost. Ethan looked at it for a long time, then at me. "That one feels familiar, doesn't it?" I wanted to laugh, but all I could do was nod. He moved a little closer, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the world stopped spinning. "I think about you," he said quietly, "more than I should." The confession hung between us like fragile glass. I could hear my own heartbeat. I whispered, "We can't do this." He nodded slowly. "I know. But tell me you haven't thought about it." The truth burned in my throat. But before I could answer, my phone rang. Sophia's name lit up the screen like a warning. Ethan stepped back. "You should answer that." I did. My voice trembled as I spoke to her, pretending everything was normal. When the call ended, Ethan was gone. I stood there surrounded by strangers, realizing that some moments, once broken, can never be repaired. Days turned into weeks. Sophia returned to her usual cheerful self, planning dinners and laughing as if nothing had changed. I played my part well, but inside, I carried the weight of silence. One night, as I sat by my window, I realized something painful yet freeing. Maybe some love stories aren't meant to happen. Maybe they exist only to remind us what it feels like to be alive, to feel deeply, even when you can't act on it. Ethan and I never spoke again about what almost happened. Life carried us forward, each pretending to forget. But sometimes, when the city quiets and the night stretches long, I still think of that painting. Two souls standing in the rain, close but never touching. Maybe that's what we were. Almost. Maybe some connections are not meant to last. Maybe their purpose is simply to remind us that the heart still beats, even when it breaks in silence. Have you ever walked away from someone who made your heart race, just to protect what was right? If this story touched something within you, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story from Moonlight and Roses.